Okay, so to continue on before I was interrupted, so we have this article and we've uncommented those features off. I go ahead and do a save, and when I come over here and do a refresh, notice now that our article now has some margins and everything looks really, really nice. Now we do not have a border on there. If I were to do that, if I were to say put a border on that, we would kind of see what that looks like now. Well, let's comment it out. So uncomment that out, and this is basically what it would look like. Okay. Now the nice thing is as we add text on there, I believe that article would grow. Now the one thing we do not have at this point is our wrapper that goes around the whole entire thing, and we'll see how that looks here in just in a bit. So and we got the wrapper right there. So I could do this. Let me just copy it from another site here. I'm going to copy this guy, and I'll put my wrapper right up there. I'm going to go ahead and say width is 100%. And we'll talk about left and right auto margin here in just a second. We'll say, and we got a border. Okay, so let me do a save, and let me do a refresh, and there, kind of hard to see, but there is a red line that goes around the entire thing now. That basically, oh, it's down here. See that? Whoa, we didn't. So we don't. So we have that situation where now our boxes, our navigation article, now basically hang over this red line. So I really need to make that guy a lot larger. So I'm going to go ahead and make it 750. Let's see if that helps. Yep. So that got the red line down there. So now we have our wrapper class around there. Now I could do this. So my header tag is, now is it relative? Is it flexible? Yeah, no, it's not, because it is basically the width. No, I guess it is. So let's do this. Let's make it 90% and see what happens. Yep. So everything kind of starts fitting inside there. So when we use flexible, we can kind of make our wrapper kind of be the main thing that kind of makes everything fit together, and then we can basically shrink and grow that however we need. Now we've got this nice little border here off to the side. Now why is it centered? Why is this wrapper centered on the page? That's what the margin auto does. If I were to comment those two guys out, this margin right auto and margin left auto, watch what happens. It just automatically defaults to the right or to the left. Okay, so margin right auto and margin left auto says go ahead and automatically fill up or don't use this much space on the left and right to make it centered. So that's how we would center something like a wrapper class on a page. We just say margin left auto, margin right auto. We can do that really with anything. That's how we could take this box or this header. Let's say I did something like this. Let's say I made this header, I'm going to make it a width of, we'll say 60%. Okay, so I make it 60% wide. So watch what happens when I basically refresh this. Did that? That didn't do a darn thing. Make it 20%. And I don't know why it's not working. This must be something overriding it. If I took away the centered, what would, I don't think that's doing it. But there's something overriding that that's not allowing that to work. Yeah. Okay, but anyways, I'll have to figure out what that is. There's something that's overriding that for some reason. Okay, so So as you can see, we can have our wrapper class. We start fitting our pieces and parts inside of it. So our wrapper class is kind of our workspace, and then we make the things kind of fit inside of it. So kind of a really, really great way to lay out your page, which since the chapter is called page layout. So so that's kind of what this whole thing basically did. So when we get done, that's what it looks like. We've already basically talked about that, and there's all of the that's exactly what we've done. So here we have, now let's talk about a fixed layout. Fixed layout remains constant despite the resizing. So what we're saying is, when I make it width, it's not percentages, it's a pixel or an M or some configuration like that. That means when we resize that screen, this will not resize either. So we take a look at so here's a fixed layout, okay? So if we take a look at the code for this, here's what we've got. So it's pretty much the same website. We got a wrapper class, we got a header, we got a nav, we got an article, we got a sidebar, we got a footer. Okay. Here we've got our body. Here's our div tag for our wrapper. Here's our div tag for a header. Here's the ending div tag for that. Here's our div tag for our wrapper, our nav. Here's the ending div tag for the nav. Here's our div tag for the article. We come down here, here's the ending div tag. And here we've got a div tag for a sidebar. Here's a div tag for a footer. Now notice here's the beginning div tag, here's the ending div tag. Beginning div tag, ending div tag. And this div tag down here, again, is for the wrapper. Okay. So there's our ending div tag. Okay. So I've got all of this commented out. So the first thing I'll do is let's go ahead and uncomment the wrapper class. Now notice it's got a width of 1220. It's got a margin right, margin left auto. That means it's going to center that on the page. We've got a border thin solid. We've got a background color of FFC, which I think is a light gray. I go ahead and save it. I go ahead and then take a look at it. I do a refresh. Now look what we got. Okay, it's actually a green, not gray. So pretty much the same exact thing. It's now contained within a wrapper. It's only 1220 wide. If I basically resize this screen, guess what? It's still 1220. Okay, so it's not going to get any smaller. So then I come back over here and I uncomment the header. Now notice, it's 1200. This was 1220. I have a margin top of 10, a margin left of 10. So that's really 1210 right now. So what does that mean? That means it's going to be 10 away from the left border, which means it's going to leave 10 on the other side as well. So it's going to be kind of centered in a sense, because I didn't specifically say 10 on the right, but it's there because it's 1200 and the thing's 1220. If I'm using 10, that means it's 10 left over. It's got a border, it's got a background. I save it, take a look at it, and that's what it looks like. So it's 10 from the top, 10 from the left. And I think did we have a bottom? Okay. So again, still, when I resize it, it's fixed, nothing changes. So that's a fixed layout. Come back over here, I'm going to go ahead and take my nav. Got a width of 200 pixels. Again, it's not percentage. The height is 600 pixels, it floats left. It's got a margin of a top of 20, right of 14, a bottom of 0, and a left of 10. It's going to be text align centered, it's going to have a thin border, and it's going to have a background color. I save it. We view it. That's what it looks like. But notice what we've got. We've got some hangover. We'll deal with that in just a sec. Okay. We now have the article. I like to call it the main. We've got a width of 778. When I look, our nav is 200, this is 778. Well, that's now 900, but it also has a margin. This one has a margin right of 14. This has a margin left of 0. So because it's remember the collapsible margins. So it's got 14. So we add 14 to that. That's now it's less than 1220 or less than 1200, I should say. So we're still good. So I save that and got a border and a background color. I save it. Now we have our article. Notice what happened to our wrapper so far. We'll deal with that in just a sec. So now, does my wrapper have a height? My wrapper does not have a height. And here's what happens. When we float things, remember, it kind of floats and things kind of wrap around it. But the wrapper is something that we're inside of. So when we float something, we're no longer kind of inside that box. We don't have to follow the up and down parameters. So when I put my sidebar in, I think I'm going to have the same issue. So I got a width of 200. So now I got 200, 200, and 778. That's now 478. That's what, 11 and 78, and we've got a 14, and we have a left margin of 0. That one's got a right margin of 0 as well. They're going to be, I think they might be butted up against each other. Yeah, that's top right, bottom left. And it's going to be float right, so it's going to float to the right. We've got a thin border and a background color. So I save it. Let's take a look what it looks like. Now notice my footer. Kind of hard to see with my face in the way here. But notice my footer's kind of hanging off to the side up here. It's kind of fallen into place. And again, now we're forcing the wrapper to basically be included with us because our footer's kind of hanging there now, and it forces that to happen. Before we had that sidebar floater kind of stuck inside there, and it didn't know how to react to the wrapper class. Now that we've got the floaters in there and everything's in there, we've got our footer. Now the wrapper class will basically wrap around things. But that's not how we want our footer to look. Okay, so I come back over here and I'll uncomment the footer. Now, if I did not have this clear both, I don't know if that would still work. We'll talk about it just in a sec. So our width is 1200, same width as the header. Our height is 75 pixels. Our border is a thin border. We got a margin left of 10, a margin bottom of 10. And then we have our background color. So let me save it. And then let's see how it looks. Yeah, so same thing happened there. Notice what happened is since we didn't clear the floats, the wrapper went back up, and notice my footer is still there. And there's no borders, no anything. We need to clear it out of the floaters first for it to work. So now when I basically say clear both, that means clear both the left and right floaters, and don't include me in the floaters. I'm an entity all by myself. It's going to look just fine. So I save it, I come back out here, refresh, and there's my footer. Okay. So now we've got a good looking page. We've got a footer, we've got a sidebar, we've got our nav. Again, these are just generic right now. We'll put some text in there later on in some other chapters so it looks more like a web page. Okay. But again, if I resize this page, nothing resizes with it because it's a fixed size. Now, let me ask you this. What happens if I were to do this? What if I were to change the wrapper to just 1000? The others are stuck at 1200. What would happen there? Yep. So again, we didn't have enough room to display the article and the nav and the sidebar on one line because they all are bigger, and the footer and the header basically extend outside of it. So again, very important that we make our wrapper class bigger than the stuff that goes inside of it, or it's going to look really, really bad. Okay, so let's continue on. So again, that's basically where we where this chapter kind of was getting to, is again we put all that stuff in there. Now this is where it talks about the margin left auto, margin right auto. So that's where we can take a layout piece, like one of the boxes, one of the navs or the article or the sidebar, and we can make it centered by just putting margin left auto and margin right auto. This automatic center is simple to use of the margin property. Just tell the left and right margin auto each, and then that particular item will be centered on the page. Or it will be centered within the other box. In this case, the header would be centered within, or the float would be centered within the wrapper. But in this case, we wanted the wrapper to be centered on the page. That's what that's talking about there. So creating a fixed layout. So here's another activity. We're creating the fixed layout. So grab the fixed layout. That's what I just did. And we put in the wrapper, we put in the margins, auto, we did all that. Yeah, so I basically just did that. I highly suggest that you do that yourselves, download those files, and then go in and add the text. It will help you learn this so much more by just typing those in and following the magic 8 ball as it kind of goes through and basically puts things out there. So that's it for this week. Really good chapter on how to set up these boxes. So next week we're going to start filling these boxes with pictures and other types of things, and really get this to look like a web page should. So again, any questions, contact me. We can Skype, we can talk on the phone, however you need to. I'm here to help. Just basically contact me, set up a time, and we could do that. Okay.